Daniel and his wife, Mia, were enjoying a quiet Sunday morning at their small but cozy house. Sunlight streamed through the windows, lighting up the living room with a soft glow. Daniel was sitting on the sofa reading a book about space exploration, while Mia was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread filled the house, making it feel warm and welcoming. Suddenly, a sharp, insistent knocking echoed through the front door. Daniel looked up, frowning. "Who could that be this early?" he muttered. Mia, busy stirring eggs in a pan, called out, "I don't know. Maybe a delivery." The knocking grew louder and more impatient. Then, a stern voice called from outside, "Hello. Open this door now." Daniel set his book down and went to the window. He peeked through the blinds and saw their neighbor, Karen, standing there. She was wearing her usual expression of annoyance, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Daniel could see her lips moving as she waved her finger at the door, clearly frustrated. He sighed. "Oh no, it's Karen," he said quietly. Mia paused for a moment, glancing toward him. "Karen who?" she asked. "Karen from the HOA," Daniel replied. "She always finds something to complain about. I think she is upset about the lawn again." Mia rolled her eyes and returned to the stove. "I'm busy. Tell her we will check it later," she said, focused on cooking. But Karen was not the type to wait politely. She knocked even harder, her voice rising in anger. "I said open this door. I am calling the police if you do not answer." Daniel froze. His heart skipped a beat. Calling the police over an HOA complaint seemed extreme. He quickly moved toward the door, but Mia stepped in front of him. "Let me handle this," she said calmly, wiping her hands on a towel. Daniel watched as Mia approached the door. She opened it just a crack, enough to speak through. "Good morning, Karen. Can I help you?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "Yes, you can answer the door and deal with your backyard. The HOA received reports that your grass is too long, and some flowers are over the line. This is not acceptable." Mia tilted her head slightly and smiled politely. "I understand your concern, Karen. We are aware of the guidelines and have planned to trim the garden today. There is no need to call the police." Karen's expression turned more serious. "I will call them if you do not answer me properly." Mia raised an eyebrow. "You may, but I assure you, there is nothing urgent. We are following the rules, and the situation is under control." Karen huffed loudly, turning red with frustration. She stepped back from the door but continued to shout. "I do not think you understand the seriousness. The HOA does not take this lightly." Daniel watched nervously, unsure whether to step in. He could see that Karen's patience had completely disappeared. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for her phone in her bag. Mia, however, remained calm. She knew Karen had a reputation for overreacting. She had dealt with her several times before and had learned that staying polite and patient was the best approach. "Karen," Mia said firmly, "we are aware of the rules, and we will take care of everything. I promise you there is no reason to involve the police." Karen's eyes widened. She hesitated for a moment as if considering Mia's words. But before she could reply, Daniel heard the unmistakable sound of a phone dialing. "She is calling them," Daniel whispered, worry creeping into his voice. "Mia, maybe you should." Mia shook her head. "Let her. There is nothing wrong here. She will realize soon that this is unnecessary." Outside, Karen spoke rapidly into her phone, explaining her complaint in an exaggerated tone. Her voice carried through the thin walls, making Daniel feel a mix of anger and disbelief. "How can one person take something so small and make it this big?" he muttered. Mia closed the door slowly, turning to Daniel with a small smile. "Let's stay calm. We know we are in the right." Daniel nodded but could not help feeling nervous. What if she actually calls the police? Mia laughed softly, shaking her head. Then we will explain the truth. There is no problem. The police will understand. Daniel took a deep breath, trying to relax. He returned to the sofa while Mia went back to the kitchen. The smell of coffee and toast once again filled the room, but Daniel could not ignore the tension outside. He peeked through the window again and saw Karen pacing near her car, phone in hand, clearly frustrated that the situation was not escalating the way she expected. Mia returned to the stove, humming lightly. She seemed completely unbothered, as if Karen's anger was just a small ripple in her peaceful morning. Daniel watched her and realized why he loved her so much. She handled challenges with patience and calmness he could only admire. Then, the distant sound of sirens reached their ears. Daniel froze. Mia, are those? Mia's eyes widened slightly. I think they are coming, she said, her voice steady but with a hint of curiosity. Daniel swallowed hard, unsure what to expect next. The peaceful Sunday morning had suddenly turned into something entirely unexpected. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as the sound of sirens grew louder. He glanced at Mia, who was standing by the kitchen counter, her hands resting lightly on the edge. She looked calm, almost as if she had expected this. Daniel whispered, Mia, what if Karen really called the police? I mean, it was just about the garden. Mia smiled faintly. Then we explain everything. There is no reason to panic. It is probably someone she called without thinking. Daniel nodded but still felt uneasy. He returned to the window and peeked through the blinds. He could see Karen on her phone, waving her hands dramatically as she spoke to someone. Her face was red, her eyes wide with frustration. She really is serious, Daniel muttered. This is crazy. Mia walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. Let's just wait. The police will arrive soon, and everything will be clear. There is nothing to worry about. A few moments later, the sound of a police car approaching became unmistakable. Its lights flashed gently on the quiet suburban street, reflecting in the windows of their home. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. He had never imagined a simple HOA dispute could turn into a police matter. The car slowed to a stop in front of their house. Daniel could see the officer step out and approach the door. He froze, ready to greet a stranger, but then something caught his attention. It was Olivia. Daniel's jaw dropped slightly. Olivia had been Mia's close friend from college. They had lost touch over the years, and Daniel had never met her. And now, here she was, in full police uniform, calm and professional. Mia, Daniel whispered, his voice filled with surprise, do you know her? Mia nodded, a small smile on her lips. Yes, Daniel. That is Olivia. She is now the police chief in this area. Daniel's eyes widened. The police chief? Here. For Karen's complaint. Mia chuckled softly. It seems like it. Olivia walked up to the front door with a steady, confident pace. Her presence was commanding but not threatening. She knocked once, firmly but politely, and then waited. Mia opened the door, keeping her calm demeanor. Good morning, Olivia, she said warmly. It's been a long time. Olivia smiled. Good morning, Mia. It has been a while. I hope you are both well. She turned slightly to Daniel and gave a small nod. And you must be Daniel. I have heard about you. Daniel, still surprised, nodded back. Yes, I am Daniel. It is nice to meet you again, Olivia. Outside, Karen was watching the scene unfold, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. She had expected an officer to scold or threaten them, but instead, she saw a familiar face from the past standing in full authority. Olivia raised an eyebrow at Karen, her expression calm but firm. Good morning, ma'am. I understand you called regarding a complaint about this household. Karen stammered, struggling to find words. Why yes. I, they. I thought. Olivia held up a hand. Please, let's speak calmly. I need to understand the situation before taking any action. Daniel glanced at Mia, impressed by how composed she remained. See. Mia whispered. Everything is under control. Olivia turned to Daniel and Mia. Can you explain what happened? She asked politely. Mia nodded. Yes, Olivia. Karen here was concerned about our garden not meeting HOA standards. I was busy cooking and could not answer immediately. I explained to her that we are aware of the rules and will handle it today, but she insisted on calling the police. Olivia listened carefully, nodding as she absorbed the information. Her eyes then shifted to Karen. Ma'am, I understand your concern, but it is important to remain calm and ensure that a situation is truly urgent before calling law enforcement. Karen's face went redder. I thought. Olivia looked at her gently but firmly. Assumptions can lead to misunderstandings. In this case, everything was under control. Please remember that before calling next time. Karen stammered, clearly embarrassed, and looked down at her shoes. Daniel noticed her shoulders slump slightly as reality sank in. She had not expected the officer to be someone she knew, someone she respected, and someone who could calmly handle the situation. Mia smiled at Olivia. Thank you for coming personally, Olivia. It really helps. Olivia nodded. It is my duty, Mia. I am glad there is no real problem here. Let's ensure we communicate properly in the future. Daniel finally exhaled. The tension in his chest eased. He could see Karen backing away, mumbling apologies, still unsure how to handle the sudden turn of events. Mia closed the door gently after Olivia and Daniel had finished speaking with Karen. Daniel turned to Mia, relief and admiration written all over his face. I can't believe it. Olivia, the police chief, she just handled that so perfectly. Mia smiled, her eyes twinkling. Sometimes, Daniel, it is not about the rules. It is about understanding, patience, and respect. That is what matters. Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of relief and amusement. Their peaceful Sunday morning had turned into an unexpected lesson in humility, friendship, and authority. The morning sun shone brightly over the quiet street as Daniel and Mia stepped onto their porch to greet Olivia. Daniel still could not believe that their simple Sunday had turned into a meeting with the police chief. Olivia's presence was calm but commanding, and her uniform gave her an air of authority that even Daniel found impressive. Karen, still standing a few feet away, looked uncertain and uneasy. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, and she avoided eye contact with Mia. Daniel could see the moment she realized she might have overreacted, especially with someone she knew personally in charge. Olivia glanced at Karen with a gentle but firm expression. Ma'am, I am here to understand the situation and ensure everyone is safe and treated fairly. Please explain your concerns calmly. Karen hesitated, her cheeks red. I was concerned about their garden. It looked like it was not following the HOA rules. I thought it might be a problem. Mia took a step forward, keeping her tone polite but steady. Karen, we understand the HOA guidelines and respect them. Our garden is planned for today, and we are taking care of it. There was no danger or emergency that required the police. Olivia nodded slowly, listening to both sides. Thank you, Mia. And thank you, Karen. I understand your position. It is important to follow community rules, but it is also important to be reasonable. Calling law enforcement should be for urgent matters only. Karen's eyes widened as she glanced at Olivia. Recognition slowly dawned on her. Wait, you are Olivia, right? From the council meetings last year? And Mia's friend. Olivia smiled slightly. Yes, Karen. I am Olivia. I am also the police chief now. That is why I am here personally to handle this calmly. Karen froze. Her hands shook slightly as she realized the gravity of the situation. She had been so sure that calling the police would make her seem important and in control, yet here she was, facing someone she had underestimated in the past. Daniel stepped closer to Mia and whispered, "Well, this is unexpected." Mia chuckled softly. "Yes, it is. But stay calm. Olivia will handle it." Olivia turned back to Karen. "Ma'am, it is okay to be concerned about community rules. But assuming a situation is serious without checking facts can cause unnecessary problems. In this case, there was no violation requiring police intervention. You must learn to assess calmly before escalating matters." Karen swallowed hard, her confidence fading. She nodded quickly. I understand. I did not mean to. I just thought I was helping." "You were trying to help," Olivia said gently. "But help is most effective when it is informed and measured." Daniel noticed Karen's shoulders relax slightly, though her embarrassment was still clear. He turned to Mia with a small grin. "Looks like karma caught up with her." Mia laughed quietly. "It is not about karma. It is about understanding." Olivia is reminding her how to approach situations with respect and patience. Karen cleared her throat and tried to regain some composure. I apologize for calling the police unnecessarily. I will handle future concerns differently." Olivia nodded. "Thank you, Karen. That is all anyone can ask. Mistakes happen, but learning from them is what matters." Daniel breathed a quiet sigh of relief. He had been worried about the confrontation, but Olivia's calm presence had turned the situation around completely. He could see that Mia's choice to remain composed and polite had made Olivia's job much easier. Mia smiled at Olivia. "Thank you for coming personally, Olivia. It really made a difference." Olivia returned the smile. "It is my duty, Mia. I am glad the situation is resolved peacefully. Please continue with your day without worry." Karen muttered a final, slightly embarrassed apology and turned to walk away. Daniel could not help but chuckle softly. He glanced at Mia. "Well, that was certainly more dramatic than I expected." Mia nodded, still smiling. "Sometimes, Daniel, the world reminds us to stay humble and patient. Karen needed this lesson, and now she has it." Olivia turned to Daniel and Mia, her expression serious but kind. "It is always better to communicate directly before involving law enforcement. Everyone in the neighborhood will be safer and happier if we respect that." Daniel felt a sense of relief wash over him. He looked at Mia and realized how lucky he was to have her by his side. Not only was she calm under pressure, but she also had friends like Olivia who could turn even the most frustrating situations into lessons in understanding. As Karen walked back to her house, still mumbling apologies, Daniel and Mia exchanged a quiet laugh. Their morning, which had begun peacefully with coffee and toast, had transformed into a lesson in patience, authority, and humility. The sun continued to shine on their little street, the tension slowly fading. Daniel poured himself another cup of coffee and joined Mia at the kitchen table. They both knew this would be a story to remember and laugh about for years to come. After Karen walked back toward her house, still mumbling quietly, Olivia stayed on the porch with Daniel and Mia. Her expression was calm and professional, but Daniel could see a spark of curiosity in her eyes. It was clear that she wanted to understand the full story, not just the complaint. "Let's take a few minutes," Olivia said gently. "I want to hear your side fully, Mia. It is important to know exactly what happened." Mia nodded and gestured toward the living room. "Of course. Come in, Olivia." Olivia stepped inside, and Daniel followed, feeling a mix of awe and relief. Having the police chief in your home could be intimidating, but Olivia's warm smile made it feel comfortable. She glanced around at the cozy decorations and the sunlit room, then turned her attention to Mia. "Tell me everything from the beginning," Olivia said. "I want to understand why this escalated so quickly." Mia took a deep breath. "It was simple, really. Karen came over, very impatient, complaining about our garden. She knocked loudly and threatened to call the police, even though we were already aware of the HOA rules. I was cooking and could not answer immediately, and that seemed to frustrate her more." Daniel added, "She kept insisting that the police needed to be called, and honestly, we didn't know why it became such a big deal." Olivia nodded thoughtfully. "It sounds like she overreacted. Sometimes people assume the worst and act quickly without full information. That is why I stepped in personally." Mia smiled. "You handled it so well, Olivia." Karen immediately realized who you were, and it calmed her down. Olivia's eyes twinkled. "That is part of the job, but it also helps to know the community personally. I have known you, Mia, for years, and that helped me approach the situation calmly and fairly." Daniel looked between them, impressed. "I had no idea you were friends with Mia. It makes sense now why you were so calm and confident." Olivia nodded. "Knowing people personally does not mean ignoring the rules, but it does help in understanding intentions. Karen's concern was genuine, but her approach was wrong. She should have communicated more patiently." Mia leaned back slightly. "I tried to explain to her, but she was so focused on making a scene that she ignored what I was saying." Olivia smiled. "Exactly. Sometimes people do not listen until they realize they are mistaken. It is part of learning. Karen will remember this encounter for a long time." Daniel chuckled softly. "I hope so. It was stressful to watch from the sidelines, but it was also a little funny to see her reaction when she recognized you." Olivia laughed lightly. "Yes, it can be surprising. But it is a reminder that authority is not only about power, it is about calmness, understanding, and fairness." Mia nodded. "That is very true. And thank you for helping us avoid unnecessary trouble. I was worried the situation could get worse." Olivia shook her head. "You did nothing wrong. It is Karen's misunderstanding that caused the issue. I only stepped in to mediate and ensure everyone understood the facts. That is my responsibility." Daniel leaned forward. "I think the biggest lesson here is that patience really matters. If Karen had waited a few minutes, none of this would have happened." Olivia agreed. "Exactly. And it is also important to understand the limits of authority. HOA rules are for community safety and order, but police intervention should be reserved for real emergencies." Mia smiled and looked at Daniel. "See, Daniel. Everything has a reason." Olivia handled the situation perfectly, and Karen learned her lesson. Daniel nodded, feeling grateful. "Yes, and it is reassuring to know that people like Olivia are in charge. It makes me feel safe in this neighborhood." Olivia glanced around, her expression softening. Safety is not just about rules or police presence. It is also about respect, communication, and understanding within the community. You both are doing well by staying calm and respectful, even when others overreact." Mia laughed lightly. "Thank you, Olivia. That is a nice reminder." Daniel chuckled. "And maybe a reminder for Karen too." Olivia smiled. "Indeed. People learn best when they experience the situation directly. Today was a lesson for everyone involved." The three of them shared a quiet moment, sipping coffee and reflecting on the morning's events. Daniel realized that despite the unexpected drama, the situation had been a valuable experience. They had learned patience, the importance of calm communication, and the value of having trusted people in positions of authority. As the sun continued to rise higher in the sky, the atmosphere in the house felt peaceful again. Daniel looked at Mia and then at Olivia, feeling a sense of gratitude. What could have been a stressful day had turned into an unexpected opportunity to learn about patience, respect, and friendship. Olivia finally stood up. I should get going. But remember, communication is key, and understanding each other prevents unnecessary conflicts. I am glad this was resolved peacefully. Mia smiled warmly. Thank you, Olivia. We really appreciate your help. Daniel nodded. Yes, thank you. This was unexpected, but very educational. Olivia waved as she left the house, and Daniel and Mia watched her walk down the street. Daniel shook his head, still smiling. Well, that was a morning to remember. Mia laughed softly. It certainly was. But everything turned out well, and that is what matters. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the tension of the morning finally fade. They returned to their breakfast, now with a story they would laugh about for years, and a newfound respect for patience, understanding, and the unexpected twists of life. Karen walked back toward her house, still mumbling apologies under her breath. Her face was red, and her hands were nervously twisting in front of her. She had always thought of herself as someone who knew the rules and could enforce them if needed. But today had been a different story. She had called the police expecting authority to side with her, only to discover that the officer she summoned was someone she knew and had underestimated in the past. Daniel and Mia watched from their porch, quietly sipping their coffee. The tension of the morning had finally started to fade, but they could not help watching Karen's reaction. Mia shook her head lightly, a small smile on her face. She does not realize how humbling this is for her, she said. Daniel chuckled. No, she definitely does not. It is a little funny, but I also feel a bit sorry for her. Karen paused mid-step, her eyes widening as she realized something important. She looked toward Olivia, who was now walking back to her car, her uniform crisp and posture confident. Karen's hand flew to her mouth, and she gasped softly. It's her, Karen whispered to herself. The officer, she is Olivia. The police chief. And, she is Mia's friend. Daniel, noticing Karen's reaction, raised an eyebrow. Looks like she just remembered who she is dealing with. Mia laughed softly. Yes, Daniel. That moment of realization is usually the most humbling part. Karen's mind raced. She had always been quick to judge, quick to complain, and quick to assume the worst. Today, she had acted on impulse, and it had backfired. Her anger and impatience had led her to escalate a minor HOA concern into a situation involving the police. And now, she was standing in front of the very person she had underestimated. She took a deep breath and tried to steady herself. Her hands were still shaking, but she forced a small, awkward smile. I did not realize. I mean, I did not know. Olivia stopped and turned slightly, noticing Karen's discomfort. She raised a hand in a gentle, calming gesture. It is all right, Karen. Mistakes happen. The important thing is that we learn from them. Karen nodded quickly, still flustered. Yes, yes. I understand. I apologize for overreacting. I should have been more patient and checked the facts before calling the police. Olivia smiled kindly. Thank you, Karen. That is all anyone can ask. Understanding and patience are more important than being right all the time. Karen's eyes widened further as she realized just how serious Olivia's position was. She had always thought of Mia's friend as friendly and approachable, but never as someone who now held so much authority. Standing there, she felt a mix of embarrassment, respect, and awe. Daniel whispered to Mia, I think she is finally learning her lesson. Mia nodded. Yes, and hopefully she will remember it for a long time. Sometimes, it takes a direct experience to understand the importance of patience and respect. Karen took a small step back, still speaking nervously. I. I promise I will be more careful in the future. I will handle HOA concerns calmly and respectfully. I. I did not mean to cause trouble. Olivia nodded. That is a good decision, Karen. Everyone can learn from their mistakes. Today was a lesson in humility and respect, not just for you but for everyone involved. Daniel smiled quietly. It is almost satisfying to watch. She had so much confidence, and now she is humbled. Mia laughed softly. It is not about satisfaction, Daniel. It is about understanding. Karen will benefit from this experience if she takes it seriously. Karen, still flustered, adjusted her bag and took another step toward her house. Thank you, Olivia. And thank you, Mia. I. I will remember this. Olivia gave a small nod. Good. That is all I ask. Remember, respect, patience, and clear communication prevent unnecessary conflicts. This will make the neighborhood safer and happier for everyone. Karen nodded quickly again, almost as if repeating the words to convince herself. She turned and walked toward her house, shoulders still slightly hunched, but with a renewed sense of awareness. Daniel and Mia watched her go, feeling a mixture of amusement and relief. Once Karen had disappeared from view, Daniel sighed and leaned back in his chair. Well, that was intense. I never thought a garden complaint could teach such a big lesson. Mia smiled warmly. It is not just the garden, Daniel. It is about patience, respect, and understanding. Karen learned something important today. And we were lucky to have Olivia here to help. Daniel nodded, taking another sip of coffee. Yes, Olivia was amazing. Calm, confident, and fair. I am really impressed. Mia laughed softly. I told you. Friends like Olivia make a big difference in life. Sometimes, the right person at the right moment can change everything. Daniel looked at Mia and smiled. Despite the unexpected drama, he felt grateful. Their morning, which had started peacefully, had become a memorable lesson in humility, patience, and the importance of knowing who you are dealing with. The sun continued to shine over the street, and Daniel and Mia finally relaxed. Karen's shock and embarrassment would likely be a story the neighborhood remembered for a while. But for Daniel and Mia, it was a story that brought laughter, relief, and appreciation for the calm and wise presence of their old friend, now the police chief. After Karen finally returned to her house, Daniel and Mia felt a sense of calm settle over their street. The tension that had dominated the morning was gone, replaced by a quiet relief. The sun shone warmly, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee still lingered in the house. Olivia, the police chief, turned to Daniel and Mia with a small smile. Everything seems to be under control now, she said. Karen has understood her mistake, and there is no further issue here. Daniel exhaled deeply. I cannot believe how quickly things escalated. One moment we were enjoying breakfast, and the next, we were dealing with the police. Mia laughed softly. It was a lesson in patience and understanding. Karen needed this reminder, and Olivia handled it perfectly. Olivia nodded. Yes, communication is key. People sometimes act before thinking, and that can create unnecessary conflicts. Today was a chance to show that calm discussion works better than assumptions. Daniel looked at Olivia and smiled. I think she will remember this for a long time. You were very clear and fair. Olivia shrugged slightly. I only did what was necessary. My goal is always to mediate and ensure understanding. Authority is not about punishment, it is about guidance and fairness. Mia smiled. Exactly. And it is nice to know we have someone like you in charge. It makes the neighborhood feel safer. Olivia glanced at the house and the small garden, now peaceful in the morning light. Safety is not only about rules or officers. It is about respect and clear communication among neighbors. You two handled everything calmly, and that helped resolve the situation quickly. Daniel nodded, still feeling impressed. Yes, staying calm really made a difference. I was ready to argue with Karen, but Mia just stayed polite and patient. It was amazing to watch. Mia laughed lightly. It is easier to remain calm when you know the truth and handle things respectfully. That is why I did not worry. I trusted Olivia would understand. Olivia smiled warmly. And I did. It is always helpful when people communicate clearly and respectfully. Karen may have learned a lesson about patience and awareness today, but you both also demonstrated the right way to handle conflicts. Daniel glanced out the window and saw Karen sitting on her porch, quietly reading a booklet about HOA guidelines. Her previous anger had melted into concentration. She occasionally shook her head and murmured apologies, clearly reflecting on the morning's events. Mia chuckled softly. I think she is thinking very hard about what happened. Daniel nodded, smiling. Yes, and probably feeling embarrassed at the same time. It is satisfying to see her humbled, even if it is a little funny. Olivia turned to leave, her uniform tidy and her presence calm. Remember, clear communication and respect prevent misunderstandings. This neighborhood will be stronger if everyone practices patience and listens before acting. I am glad this was resolved without any problems. Mia smiled. Thank you again, Olivia. You really helped us today. Daniel nodded. Yes, thank you. This could have been much worse if not for you. Olivia waved gently. You are welcome. Take care, both of you. She walked toward her car, the morning sun reflecting off her badge. Her presence was commanding yet gentle, leaving a sense of reassurance behind. Once Olivia left, Daniel turned to Mia, still smiling. Well, that was an unexpected lesson in life, patience, and HOA rules. Mia laughed softly. Yes, it was. But everything worked out. Karen learned her lesson, and we got to enjoy a peaceful morning afterward. It turned out well. Daniel chuckled. It also makes a great story for friends and family. I can already imagine telling them about how Karen called the police and ended up meeting the police chief, who just happens to be Mia's old friend. Mia shook her head, still smiling. Yes, and it will remind us that patience and calmness are always the best approach. Even when others overreact, staying respectful helps resolve things quickly. Daniel nodded. I will remember that. And I think Karen will too, after today. The morning air felt warmer now, carrying the quiet sounds of birds and distant traffic. Daniel poured himself another cup of coffee, and Mia returned to the kitchen to finish breakfast. They both felt a sense of relief and lightness, knowing the morning's chaos had ended peacefully. Daniel took a sip of his coffee and smiled at Mia. I think this was one of the most unusual Sundays we have ever had. Mia laughed softly. Yes, but it was also one of the most memorable. And now we have a story that will make us laugh for years. Daniel nodded, feeling grateful. Despite the unexpected tension, the morning had turned into a lesson about patience, respect, and the importance of handling conflicts calmly. He looked at Mia and realized how lucky he was to have her by his side, especially when life took unexpected turns. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over their small neighborhood. Daniel and Mia finished their coffee, feeling peaceful and content. The world seemed calm again, and the lesson of the morning lingered, a reminder that patience, respect, and understanding always lead to the best resolution. With the morning chaos behind them, Daniel and Mia finally returned to the comfort of their home. The sun was now higher in the sky, bathing the living room in a warm glow. The smell of breakfast still lingered in the air, and Daniel poured himself another cup of coffee. It feels good to finally relax, Daniel said, leaning back in his chair. I cannot believe how dramatic this morning was. Mia laughed softly. Yes, it started peacefully, And then Karen escalated a simple garden complaint into a police situation. But everything turned out fine, thanks to Olivia. Daniel nodded, smiling. She was amazing. Calm, fair, and confident. I can see why she became the police chief. Mia took a seat beside him. She handled it perfectly, Daniel. She listened to both sides, explained things clearly, and helped Karen understand her mistake without embarrassing her too much. That is the mark of a good leader. Daniel chuckled. Speaking of Karen, I wonder how long it will take her to live this down. She looked completely flustered when she realized Olivia was the officer. Mia smiled. Probably a long time. But I hope she learned the most important lesson today: patience and understanding are far more effective than rushing to judgment. Daniel sipped his coffee, glancing out the window. Karen's house looked calm now. She was outside in her garden, moving slowly, as if contemplating the morning's events. Daniel shook his head with a laugh. She is probably thinking about everything she did. Maybe she will even apologize to the HOA or adjust how she handles complaints in the future. Mia nodded. I hope so. But for now, we can enjoy our day. No more interruptions, no more stress. Just peace. Daniel smiled and reached for Mia's hand. You know, this could have been a disaster, but it turned into a lesson. And a funny story for later. Mia squeezed his hand. Exactly. Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes, the challenges we face teach us more than calm mornings ever could. Just then, the doorbell rang. Daniel looked at Mia in surprise. Who could that be now? Mia laughed softly. Let's see. She opened the door to find Olivia standing there again, holding a small tray of pastries. Good afternoon, Olivia said warmly. I thought you might enjoy a treat after this morning's events. It is on me. Daniel and Mia exchanged amused glances. Thank you, Olivia, Mia said. That is very kind of you. Olivia stepped inside, placing the tray on the table. You both handled everything calmly and respectfully, which made my job easy. A little reward is always nice after a successful morning. Daniel picked up one of the pastries and took a bite. This is delicious. I guess police chiefs have good taste too. Mia laughed. Yes, apparently. I am glad you are in our neighborhood, Olivia. Today would have been much more stressful without you. Olivia smiled. It is my pleasure. But remember, the best part of resolving conflicts is staying calm, listening, and respecting others. You both did that well. Daniel leaned back in his chair, enjoying the quiet moment. You know, Mia, I think today taught me a lot about patience. And about knowing who you are dealing with. Calling the police seemed scary at first, but it turned into a lesson in humility, understanding, and friendship. Mia nodded. Yes, and it also reminds us that even when others overreact, we can remain calm and handle things with dignity. That is how true peace is maintained. Olivia glanced at the tray of pastries and laughed lightly. I am glad you are enjoying these. Life is too short to be upset about small disagreements. Sharing a laugh and a snack helps everyone feel better. Daniel smiled, taking another bite. Absolutely. I think Karen will think twice before overreacting next time, and we will remember this as one of the most unusual but valuable mornings of our lives. Mia leaned back and looked out the window, watching the sunlight fall on the quiet street. It is nice to see the neighborhood calm again. And I am glad we can finally enjoy our Sunday properly. Daniel nodded, feeling content. Yes, and we even got to see old friends in action. I feel lucky, Mia. Mia smiled at him warmly. We are lucky, Daniel. We faced a challenge together, stayed calm, and learned a lot. That is what matters. Olivia smiled and stood up. I should head home now. Enjoy the rest of your day. Remember the lessons of patience, understanding, and communication. They will take you far in life. Daniel and Mia waved as she left. The sunlight continued to stream into the room, and the quiet hum of the neighborhood returned. Daniel looked at Mia and chuckled. Well, that was a morning and afternoon to remember. Mia laughed softly. Yes, it was. But everything turned out perfectly. Peace, lessons learned, and even pastries. I would call that a success. Daniel nodded, feeling grateful and happy. Agreed. And it is a story we will laugh about for years. As they sat together, sipping coffee and enjoying the warm sunlight, Daniel and Mia reflected on the unexpected events of the day. What had started as a simple complaint had become a lesson in patience, humility, and friendship. And in the end, it reminded them that calmness, understanding, and a little kindness could turn even the most dramatic situations into a positive experience. The neighborhood was peaceful again, and Daniel and Mia knew they had not only survived the chaos but had also strengthened their own bond and appreciation for the people around them. It was a Sunday they would never forget.